If you are thinking about moving out of the country and potentially buying property in Panama, you need to be thinking about taxes. Today, I have an expert, Miss Cintli Chacon.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Absolutely, my dear. So this is going to be a conversation style, and thank you for joining me.
My pleasure.
So I think it would be helpful, Cintli, to share a bit about your experience when you moved to Panama, for example.
Yes, when I moved to Panama back in 2015, I was working for a company, and almost 10 years of living in Panama.
Very cool. Yeah.
Amazing country. Yeah.
Amazing country. Originally from Mexico.
Originally from Mexico City, yes.
Very cool. So Cintli and I actually met guys at the Panama Business Club many, many years ago. We formed a friendship, and I said, man, you have good experience and good knowledge. So let's get into it, my dear.
Vale.
Okay, perfect. So 10 years ago, you were working a big corporate job.
Yes.
Right? In sort of strategy, taxes, like big. Tell the folks about your background a little bit, and then.
My background is mainly related to finance and taxes worldwide, you know. Originally from Mexico, I was working for a big four company, PwC, and then I started my development in the in-house corporate world. And after 15 years of being working with big multinationals, I have decided 2 years ago to start my own practice.
Woohoo!
Yes.
So guys, real quick to the camera here, game plan for today is I'm gonna ask Cintli a bunch of questions about taxes in Panama, whether that's what it's like to own property and the taxes you have to pay, what you need to be thinking about if you are living in one country and moving somewhere else. So let's get to it, my dear.
Sure.
So I guess maybe we can start in my realm, which is real estate.
Right.
So let's say somebody is thinking about purchasing real estate in Panama. Maybe they live in the US or Canada. Well, what would you advise them to do, to think about first?
To think about first is which tax situation do you have in the country where do you originally live?
Okay.
You know, some investors are doing things, but after the fact they realize that they should have done it better, or with more planification, or with more vision or better vision.
Yep.
You know, because the fact is that global taxes, you know, impact. For those who are US citizens, they have to pay taxes in the US no matter what happens.
That's it.
You know?
Death and taxes. That's
yes,
what my dad always said.
You have never been able to detach until you have done several years living abroad. However, it's very important for any people or any business plan to assess, to identify, to research, you know, where do you want to live, what is the type of tax system that the country where you would like to live or to buy properties, what is established, what is the, if it is an unstable country, the currency, the security, all of these aspects are part of the foundation of the whatever decision you may want to take.
Absolutely. So you kind of start with your country of origin and kind of get a game plan, and then you decide, okay, so I'm going to look at all these countries. Now I'm coming to Panama.
Exactly. It's like there are plenty of options that we should consider, right? Depending on the culture, the language, the stability of the country, or the complexities of or tax benefits. It's all about depending who you are, what do you do for business, and where do you like to be and retired, and what kind of legacy you would like to leave for your family.
Sure. So, okay, so let's assume that a lot of the people maybe watching this are thinking, all right, I've done my research, I know I'm going to be in Panama.
Yes.
Now, from a tax perspective, and let's say, speaking specifically to the Americans, right? So if they buy property in Panama, they have 3 options to purchase, right? They can either buy under their personal name,
correct.
They can create a corporation, or they can create a foundation. Right. So maybe you can speak a little bit to that and kind of the tax implications of each one.
Absolutely. Each of these 3 different ways have a consequence for the one who is taking the decision. You know, if it is you as an individual, then you will be the liable for whatever payment you have to pay, and it's on your personal income, the ones that you will be impacted. That's why there are some other options to mitigate that liability and to create a legal entity where you can not only recognize if you are going to buy a property, the asset would have a depreciation, would have to be managed, and probably you can take some deductions to get a gain after income minus expenses, a gain that would be paid subject to pay taxes.
Okay.
You know, so it's how you can manage efficiently the perspective and all of the business expenses that you will incur after the fact that you are buying a property.
Sure.
Yes, and a foundation as well. This is another alternative that, depending on your purpose, you know, everything has to be managed with a strategy. What do you want? Do you want to just have an operative entity? Then you can create a foundation, but then a subsidiary who operates and have it the foundation as a passive entity. It's all about substance, you know. In Panama, I would like to highlight that it's not a tax heaven, as many people say.
Sure.
If you are living in Panama, if you are doing businesses in Panama, you have to pay taxes in Panama.
Regardless of where you're from.
It's correct.
Yep.
Yeah, that is correct. So then you need to don't believe on the movies and be mindful about the country that you would be established, you know, because depending on where you are coming from if you are coming from Europe, from US, or from any other country, you may have exposure to pay twice for the same transaction, double taxation. We have very limited in Panama, very limited network treaties, you know. So Spain, Mexico, but there are not plenty of options as probably US has,
sure,
or any other country. However, we need to be mindful about the strategy, about who is going to invest, who is going to pay the property.
Okay, so you've made your decision. Either you own under a corporation, foundation, or individual, depending on the advice that you would give them. So now, let's say it's an investment property, right? So you got somebody in there paying your rent, you've got your expenses that you can deduct, but at the end of the year, hopefully you make a profit. Talk to maybe the audience about sort of what tax implications you have on income taxes as a property owner.
Yes, well, there is an annual payment that you need to do on property tax. There is a progressive rate. There are some exemptions for until 120K.
Yes.
So then after that you have to pay 0.5% and then 7%.
Sure.
But it's like progressive, you know, depending on the value of the property.
0.5 and 0.7.
0.5
Not
and
quite
0.7.
1%. Yeah.
Correct. But also, depending on which system, on what kind of property you are managing,
right,
there would be probably the similar as a BIT in the US, ITBMS.
ITBMS, yeah.
The ITBMS, which is the sales tax. For Panama, is 7%. So if you are using the property for Airbnb, then you are going to be subject to pay this tax. But if you are just renting this for people to live there, probably you are exempt.
Okay.
So you need to be mindful about who is going to use the property that you are leasing. Also very important, the value. Whenever you buy a property, you need to verify the cadastral value, because the payment that you need to do on annual basis, it's based on that value.
Yeah.
And something that not all of the people is aware of is that the good part of having an asset is that the value of this asset increases on a timely basis, you know. But the payment of the taxes are based on the historical value of this cadastral value. But when you are acquiring now a property that probably is not new, but it has a old value, sometimes there is a valuation that the seller is doing, and that valuation needs to be registered, and the new payment should be done based on the new market value. So this is something that it's very important to review and to validate and to be mindful about, because that can change the annual payment from $100 US on an annual basis or 1,000 or more, you know. So it's change dramatically the value of the property after the evaluation that you received.
Okay, got it. So far, guys, we've got cost of ownership in terms of the structure that you use.
Correct.
You've got property taxes, right? And depending on the cadastral value, which you can get updated. But that's voluntary, or that happens in a transaction. Like
in a transaction,
yeah,
yes.
Which is great. It's not like in Panama where they update it every year. I know that's...
It's not mandatory. It's something that it's personal, relying on the owner of the property.
Exactly. So then you've got also potentially sales taxes that you need to withhold on Airbnb property. Nobody talks about that, but that is how the law reads, guys. It's very important to know. That's why you talk to an expert like Cintli. So the other thing is, at the end, sort of income taxes. So as a foreigner owning a property in Panama, are you subject to Panamanian income taxes?
Yes. And also, if you still live in or being tax resident in other country, then you probably, the revenue that you are receiving from Panama needs to pay taxes in your country where do you live. And this is what you need to consider. That may be withholding tax for income tax, or in Panama, if depending how you structure the property, if you have a legal entity here, then you are going to pay 25% of income tax
as a corporation.
Right? But also, if you are selling your property to another, then there is a percentage of capital gains that you need to pay. And if you are in Panama, you need to pay it. But if you are abroad, you need to find first if there is a double tax treaty that you can use to reduce the percentage that you have to pay, or not. You know, so it may vary for 3%, 5%, and you need to call an advisor and to validate
call this
that.
advisor. Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about the U.S., we do have those treaties that exist. So, you know, as a foreigner living in Panama, I still have the advantage of the earned income tax credit, which goes up every year. But yeah, I mean, taxes cannot be avoided. Simply...
No, unfortunately no. And now in this environment, there is a globalization, you know. In the past, the tax planning was sometimes abusive of all of these figures, but nowadays the tax authorities are very aware about the structures, the opportunities to pay less taxes.
Sure.
And whatever is legal, it's okay. But you need to be mindful, strategical oriented, to do it right, you know? So we are not offering to pay less taxes. You need to pay whatever we need to pay, but consciously, you know?
It's
not being like Einstein was saying, you know? It's like you have to pay taxes because you cannot avoid that, and neither to be that.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, yeah, awesome. Well, guys, Cintli is an expert, and I feel like we could talk for hours on this subject. You would know a lot more about it than I would. So, you know, I make it a point to surround myself with smart people like you.
Thank you.
To get advice and to refer clients to. I think it's important for the audience to recognize that Cintli was like a beast in the corporate world for many years. Very respected, an expert, and she's brought her knowledge to retirees, digital nomads, entrepreneurs, people that are in multi-jurisdictions. I mean, she's a great person to know. We'll make sure to include her contact information below. Any kind of closing thoughts on what else we should add to?
Absolutely. I think that it's good to think out of the box. That would be also my recommendation, but don't do it alone. Don't do it, Google it, or using ChatGPT only. Because ChatGPT lies. And you need to be advised properly because you deserve to take control of your finances, you know?
Definitely.
And you don't want to waste your money and your time doing the things wrong. So my advice, with all my humility, is to contact me. And if you have any doubt, if I have the possibility, I can advise you on how to do the things correctly.
Love it. Thank you, Cintli.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, my dear. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.